A 24-run game will skew your perception, but there are some things to count on in particular on the positive side of things with this Reds team right now.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr, and I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've turned my addiction to this team into information for you. This is my 7th season hosting this podcast, whether solo or co-hosted with Steve Offenbaker. Steve is not with us here today. Work schedule kind of messed him up a little bit, but he'll be back with us here very soon. It's just you and me talking Reds baseball on the Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day, and on today's show, Chase Burns is headed to Chattanooga. I'll tell you how that affects his timeline to MLB later on in the show. Plus, 2 significant developments took place in the 24-run game in Baltimore that you need to be aware of. I'll tell you what they are in just a few minutes. But I want to begin today's show with the positives that are worth hanging on to from such a crazy win by the Redlegs. That's all coming up on this episode that is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And everyone's wondering, right? Like 24-2, what's real? It's a long baseball season. You won on Sunday. You're playing on Monday night. What does it all mean? Because if you look at the stats right now, if you look at the season-long stats, there are a lot of things that have changed for the Reds. Before the Baltimore series, they had a team batting average of 204. Now, heading into Miami, they have a team batting average of 244. A 40-point jump in 3 days, and quite frankly, it was the final game of the series that really jumped everything up. The Reds just went crazy in one game, and those are the kind of games that get you right. It's something I've been talking about for a while now, that the Reds haven't been sustainably bad, right? Like their lineup hasn't been good, but it's not the kind of numbers you can trust. Things were going to work themselves out. They're beginning to do that. But despite that 22-run win, 24-2, the Reds have not played their best ball yet. But the signs are there that this team is no fluke. And I want to start first with the fact that before that 24-2 win, the Reds still had a positive 10 run differential on the season. I know. Some of you might have just rolled your eyes. You're talking about a positive run differential. Didn't we do that last year? Yes, we did. But it shows you the talent of this ball club, that they've got the pieces in place. And this is where the argument, and there's so many people that last Thursday, whenever they just had a crazy blow up of a game and were completely shooting themselves in the foot for 9 innings. There's plenty of people after Saturday's ball game where they had bases loaded twice and didn't score in either one of those innings. There's plenty of people that wanted to point and say, it's not the manager. It wasn't David Bell's fault. Terry Francona's not going to be able to fix everything like we hoped he would. That's wrong. He's going to be able to get the best out of this talent. I believe that. There's still plenty of signs to the positive on that. The run differential is kind of the first one for me, because you can look at a couple of different things right now. The Reds are tied with the Brewers the Brewers are 1 game ahead of them in the division. The Brewers actually have a negative run differential. They've given up more runs than the Reds have this season, and they've given up 2 more runs than they have scored overall. The Reds have a positive run differential. The Reds have a negative run differential. But I think that, after Sunday, that flipped. The Brewers do have a positive run differential. But before Sunday's game, because the Brewers had a crazy game on Sunday as well, they had a negative run differential. I think they are more like a 500 ball club than the Reds are. The Reds are an above 500 ball club when this season ends, and I believe they will make the playoffs because they're showing those signs now. Think about the fact that in that 24-run barrage of the Baltimore Orioles, the heroes of the team were not Matt McLain and Elly De La Cruz. Although Elly De La Cruz had some good defensive plays and both those guys got hits in the game, they were not the catalysts. The catalysts were Noelvi Marte and Austin Wynns. And I want to talk about Noelvi Marte here in a few minutes, but the fact that Austin Wynns got 6 hits, the backup catcher, and not even that, technically, once Tyler Stevenson returns, Tyler Stevenson is the catcher number 1, Jose Trevino is catcher number 2, Austin Wynns is catcher number 3 on a healthy depth chart for the Reds organization. And he had 6 hits in the ballgame. 4th guy ever to do that in Reds history. Ernie Lombardi is a name that you would have heard, especially if you're an everydayer of the show. And you remember, I think it's been a year or 2 since I did a Throwback Thursday segment on Ernie Lombardi. But the best catcher before Johnny Bench got here, Ernie Lombardi, in Reds history, he had a 6-hit ball game. The other 2 guys you won't know. If you know who Walker Cooper and Tony Cuccinello are, congrats. You're awesome. But I didn't. And whenever I saw those names, I'm like, who? So you had to look them up. Both those guys were barely Reds. Walker Cooper played less than 100 games as a Red, and Tony Cuccinello played less than a full season as a Red. So anyway, the point being, it was a crazy game in which the 8 and 9 hitters just went off. But it was the fact that Matt McLain and Elly De La Cruz were not the catalysts that encouraged me the most. Because we kind of felt like for the first couple of weeks of the season, if Elly didn't go, this team didn't go. And if Matt McLain wasn't here to help him, then this lineup was in real trouble. And neither one of those guys were the catalyst. So I kind of love that. And the fact that that helps play into where the Reds are right now is a key point. But the run differential is good. The run differential is even better. You know, you win by 22. Obviously, that's going to help your run differential on the season. But that's not to say that the Reds weren't already in a good spot before Sunday's game. The other thing for me, and this is something that's intriguing because I made sure to edit out Sunday's ballgame. Sunday, the Reds went 15 for 25 with runners in scoring position. There have been months consecutively in my lifetime watching this Reds team where they haven't got 15 hits with runners in scoring position. They did it in one game on Sunday against the Baltimore Orioles. And veteran pitcher Charlie Morton and some interesting guys out of their bullpen too. But 15 hits with runners in scoring position in one game, that's going to completely just blow your statistics of, with runners in scoring position out of the water. The Reds, currently the best team in baseball with runners in scoring position. Sunday is why. But you know what? Before Sunday, the Reds were the number 2 team in Major League Baseball. The second best batting average in all of Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position as a team. Before Sunday, 284 with runners in scoring position. Yeah, as much as I complained, as much as you probably complained about the fact that the Reds had bases loaded twice, 2 different innings on Saturday and didn't score, and you're thinking, this team is not clutch. This team is horrible at hitting with runners in scoring position. Wrong-o. They're pretty good at it. And I think that will continue. It's a little bit of a fluky stat that talks about what happened, and it's not predictive at all. But I think they have the right guys on this team to make that happen, to make that a reality, to be a top 10 team in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring. I'm not saying they're going to be in the top 3 the entire season. The Dodgers haven't hit their stride yet. The Dodgers are going to get up there. But the Reds are more clutch than you or I think they are, and the numbers bear that out. The other thing for me is the pitching. The pitching is something that is going to make this team great. And the team has the second best, I was reading a different note. The Reds have the 5th best ERA in all of baseball, and they have the 5th lowest walk rate in all of baseball. The walks will haunt, they don't haunt the Reds. At least they limit the number of walks that will haunt them. Only 4 other teams walk less people than the Reds do. You would like to see the Reds' strikeout rate come up. They're definitely in the bottom 10%, bottom third of the league in strikeout rate, but their walk rate is phenomenal. And the last thing for me, and this is going to surprise you, but the last thing The reason why I believe what the Reds are doing, the Reds are 9th in defensive runs saved in Major League Baseball. The whole league, number 9. And they're 5th in outs above average. So as much as you and I want to complain, and as much as we did complain on Friday about Elly De La Cruz's fielding and stuff like that, which, by the way, he shut us up over the weekend, looked amazing in Baltimore, showed us the fickleness of being a fan and being like, oh my gosh, what do we know? We want him to move. He's not moving. He's fine. But the Reds as a team, top 10 in both defensive runs saved and outs above average. The numbers say that they're a good fielding team. The numbers haven't said that in a while. So you can sit there and you can say, Jeff, Terry Francona's not going to fix it. I say you're wrong. Coming up next, 2 important developments happened with the Reds on Sunday. One that directly impact that win, and one that impacts the future. If you've ever wanted a personal finance advisor on your phone whenever you need it, Monarch Money is the way to go. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over all of your finances, because Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. You can see your deposit accounts, you can see your credit accounts, you can see your health savings account, you can even see your investment accounts for your 401ks and things like that. It is an easy way to manage your entire portfolio that is your money. Plus, managing your partner with your partner is smoother than ever. You can even track shared and personal accounts, set goals with each other, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thanks for always making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. If you're watching this or listening to this on Monday, probably not your first listen because we got it out a bit later than normal, but we'll be back in your feeds on Tuesday as well. And if you're an everydayer, thank you so much for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, you can become one by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. All right, there were 2 developments, crucially, to 2 different players on Sunday for the Reds that I love to see. One of them immediate and one of them for the future. We'll start with the future first because I like this one, and I feel like for whatever reason this guy's become a bit of a hot button topic. I've talked about him with a few of my friends and a few different folks that have listened to the show and things like this, and I cannot believe that I have to defend him, but Spencer Steer playing first base is a huge deal because most of the people around the team believe that he is the most well-rounded glove at first base. Christian Encarnacion-Strand has the highest ceiling of any first baseman on the organization, but Spencer Steer is the most trustworthy, most well-rounded dude right now at first base. He's better than Jeimer Candelario at first base and currently better than CES, although I think CES has the ability to surpass him defensively. But the fact that we're getting Steer back in the field is huge, because he's just been DHing to this point, and his bat hasn't woken up yet. That's the thing for me that I think a lot of people don't really understand. Like, looking at this from a Saturday to Sunday perspective of the Reds. In fact, looking at this from a series to series perspective of the Reds. After the series with the Mariners, the Reds had a team batting average of 204, like I mentioned early on, but they were really bad. They were down in number 26th in Major League Baseball, 26th ranked in Major League Baseball in weighted runs created plus. It's kind of like OPS plus. It's just Fangraph's version of the statistic, but it's an all-encompassing number that talks about offensive production at the plate. The Reds were 26th. After Sunday's game, they jumped up to 19th. Or I'm sorry, they jumped up to 17th. They jumped up 9 spots in one game. And for me, that just underscores how flimsy early season hitting statistics are. So bringing that back to Spencer Steer, if you think you know who Spencer Steer is based on these first 22 games, going into Monday's games, he's hitting less than $130. He's making the Mendoza line look like a pretty good thing right now. But that's just through the first 22 games. We're talking about the dude that led the team in RBIs last year, and while we have said that that's not the biggest deal, that is a big deal. You don't just lead the team in RBIs, have a rough first 20 games of the season the next year, and then get sent down to AAA. That doesn't happen. Spencer Steer is one of the key members of this ball club, and when he gets going, we're going to see the consistency of this lineup increase. Because right now it seems like they're up and down. They're hot and cold. They got one game where they're scoring 24, one game where they're scoring 3, one game where they're scoring none. Things like that. When you get Spencer Steer going, you don't have that. Because when guys get on base, he brings them in. That's what happens when Spencer Steer's going. He gets them RBIs. And I firmly believe he's going to get back there. Because consider this, where he's at right now in the season, 22 games in before the Monday night game in Miami, his career batting average is almost 110 points higher than his current batting average. And I'm talking about his career batting average that includes last year's, which I considered a down year for him. After 2023, where he looked really good, 2024 wasn't so great. Although he did have a good home run total, everything else was a little bit down for him. But still, his career batting average is almost 110 points higher. His career on base percentage is almost 120 points higher than his number right now. And his career slugging percentage is almost 200 points higher than it is right now. You know what he's doing? Spell it out with me. He's going through an SLUMP. Every Major League Baseball player has one. Some have a couple during a season. But they're fine afterward. Baseball players go through slumps like they go through hot streaks. That's just how the ebb and flow of 162 goes. He's going to be fine. It's going to pass, and he's going to become that middle-of-the-order guy, the 5-6 spot in the Reds order that is consistent, run-producing, and bringing the guys in. I believe that, and I think that it was huge that he played first base on Sunday because getting him back in the field means his versatility is returning a little bit. And when you can move him around, a lot of other guys start to be able. I mean, that's why we're seeing Jeimer Candelario. I saw the lineup for Monday's game already. He isn't in it. Back-to-back days, he's not in it. I think that's a big reason why, is because you'd rather have Spencer Steer at first base. But I think he's going to be fine, and he's going to be playing some good ball here soon. We saw the power return in San Francisco. And while he went through a bit of a slump since then, don't think it's going to be a thing that continues the rest of the season. He's going to jump up. Watch out. He's going to have a multi-hit game today, a multi-hit game on Wednesday, and then his batting average is going to look pretty normal. And then everybody's going to be like, you remember when we were saying he should send down Spencer Steer? Yeah, no, not going to happen. The other thing for me, and this was something that was more immediate, where Spencer Steer's future, it's a look toward the future, him playing first base. And hopefully here soon working in the outfield and working at third base and working at other positions like he wants to. Noelvi Marte's 5-hit ball game is huge for me. As fun as Austin Wynns getting 6 hits in a ball game is, Noelvi Marte getting 5 hits is more important for the big picture. Because Noelvi Marte last season played 66 ball games. And he got multiple hits in just 11 of them. He was bad last year for multiple different reasons, but being bad at the plate was a big part of it. And the most hits he had in a game last year was 3. The 5 hits that he had on Sunday was so big for me because it shows me that he can do that. He gets that, he has that edge to him, right? The ceiling. He gets the homer. He gets all the 7 RBIs, and it makes his season stats look better. But here's the other part of this. He has just 3 strikeouts so far this season. Last year, he averaged a strikeout per game, a little bit over a strikeout per game, because he had 75 strikeouts in 66 ball games. This year, he has 1 strikeout for every 2 games so far. Hopefully that continues, because if that continues, everything else is going to be so much better. He was a guy that after his cup of coffee in 2023, we started to pencil in as part of the future core of this team. And then after last year's debacle and how bad it was, everybody wrote him off and said he's not even part of this year's team. There's something in between. And maybe he can work his way back into the core. But at least right now, the Reds need a bona fide option in the lineup and at third base. And while he did have a throwing error on Sunday, and that's something that you do worry about with him, I worry about his fielding more so, I think, than I worry about his hitting. And we've got to see what that means for him and how that bears out in the long term. But he has an opportunity here. And if he can continue to limit the strikeouts and continue some production here along the way, we could see him, to be simplistic about it, get his job back. Because it kind of felt like he lost it. When he was demoted to the minor leagues in spring training, not a single Reds fan protested. Not a single Reds fan said, "Really? Are we sure?" Most of us said, "Yeah, no, that makes sense." So this is his time to prove us all wrong. Everyone's doubting him. You know, the whole sports cliche of, nobody believed in me. Nobody believes in Noelvi Marte right now. But a 5-hit day on Sunday might just turn some heads, might just raise a few eyebrows. The story has begun. Let's see if it can continue. But I'm happy to see that both Steer playing first and Marte with a big day. Hopefully those trends can continue, because this roster will be dangerous if things like that do. All right, coming up next, Chase Burns is moving on up, but I will tell you why that doesn't speed up his MLB timeline any more than it already was. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're seriously on every single one of them. And check out Tim Daniel every night after the ball game on the Reds postcast right here on the Locked On Reds YouTube page. And then after it's live, it'll be on your audio feeds. If you can't watch them live, it's always live right after the game on the Locked On Reds YouTube page, and then in your audio feeds shortly thereafter. All right, there was good news over the weekend. Chase Burns heading on up to Chattanooga. He tore up Dayton, just like we thought he would, and I did not get lucky enough to watch him pitch. I think he only had 1 home game in Dayton. He had 2 road appearances, but in 3 starts, he threw 11 2/3 innings for the Dragons, had 20 strikeouts in 11 2/3 innings, and had just 5 walks. You love to see that. He did get bit by the long ball twice. He only allowed 5 total hits, but 2 of those were home runs. So that's why you see the ERA like at 3. Again, flimsy early season statistics. But he's kind of following along the Rhett Lauder timeline. And there were some people that thought, boy, he's up to Chattanooga really fast. When's he getting to Cincinnati? I still don't think it's this year, because if it is this year, that means that a lot of bad things happen to the current Major League staff. I don't think the Reds are counting or planning on Chase Burns being a part of the major leagues in 2025. There could be a September call-up where he gets a cup of coffee, but I don't expect it to be a September call-up for a cup of coffee and then he stays on the playoff roster and then all this other stuff. I think he is more of a threat. Not a threat, more of a guy to keep an eye on for 2026, basically, is where I'm at with this. I don't think that this means that he's going to be in Cincinnati in June or anything crazy like that. Now, he is a key member of the future of this pitching staff, for sure. I don't know that I think I see him above Hunter Green, but I think that he's up there, right? He's got a chance to make an argument for Ace 1B, or heck, if Nick Lodolo turns things around with the curveball and really gets back to his really good pitching ways, maybe Chase Burns is Ace 1C, and that could be fun to talk about. Plus, with his name being Chase, 1C, although Burns, 1B. Yeah, whatever. It still works. But he's definitely a key member of this future, but the Reds don't have to rush him. I think in years past we were jaded because the Reds weren't spending money on guys. They weren't adding talent. So the only talent we could really hope for were prospects coming up through the organization. And while if Chase Burns was an outfielder, I think I'd be spinning a different tune here. He's a pitcher. And the Reds are very deep with their pitching staff right now, knock on wood. I don't think they need to rush him. They can afford to let him fail in Double-A and figure things out. And then they can afford to let him fail in Triple-A and let him figure things out. Because honestly, that is the path of a prospect. The path of a prospect where he does nothing but succeed in Single-A, does nothing but succeed in Double-A, and does nothing but succeed in Triple-A, and then he gets to the major leagues, guess what's going to happen? He's going to fail. And if he has not figured out how to bounce back from failure at some point already, it's going to be a long road to hoe for him. And so they have time with Chase Burns, is what I'm saying. I don't think they're going to rush him, and they don't need to rush him either. There are some other guys, and speaking of pitchers, Chase Burns being a key member of the future of this pitching staff, kind of keeping an eye on some of the young pitchers that you may have heard about in spring training, especially in the spring breakout games, if you got a chance to watch those. Love the fact that they do those every spring, where it's the top prospects of the Reds going against the top prospects of the Brewers or the Diamondbacks or whoever. But you saw Zach Maxwell in the breakout game. You remember the relief pitcher that he struck the guy out. He looked at him and he gave him the thumbs down. That guy, yeah. He's got 9 2/3 innings pitched so far for Louisville this year as a relief pitcher. He has 8 strikeouts to 4 walks. And quite frankly, when I'm talking about minor league pitchers, that's all I care about. I don't care about their ERA. I don't care about how many hits they're giving up or anything like that, because they can't control a lot of that stuff. It's about the defense. But the strikeouts and the walks, they can control. And the fact that Zach Maxwell doesn't have a strikeout per inning, and the fact that he has half as many walks as strikeouts, a little bit concerning for me. Doesn't make me think he's that close to getting a call-up. Luis May, same deal, except maybe a little bit worse. He has 6 innings pitched in Triple-A, 7 strikeouts, 7 walks. So yeah, he's got more than a strikeout per inning, and he's got more than a walk per inning. That's not good. That's not a guy I want coming out of a major league bullpen right now. So as much as, you may have heard some folks say, and if you've gone to a game so far this season, and you've seen the eye on the minor leagues, or the prospect report, whatever they play it on the big screen and they call it that, whatever it's called, I can't remember at this second. But they've talked about Zach Maxwell and Luis May, and those are guys that I think at some point this year we will see. But right now they got to work on some stuff, because right now I don't want to see them in the major leagues, because both of them are walking too many guys, especially Luis May. Another name that you heard a lot in spring training, and a guy that we should see at some point this year, Chase Petty. He has 17 innings pitched as a starting pitcher in Louisville right now, 20 strikeouts, but also 7 walks. His walks are kind of biting him in the butt a little bit, but I love to see that strikeout number. Hopefully that continues. And then one other guy, this guy, we had an episode during spring training. Everydayers will remember this one, where we talked about how some of the folks around the team were talking that they didn't love how Graham Ashcraft came into camp, although that's been refuted. They didn't love how Sam Maul came into camp. That's been confirmed. He's on the IL. Not sure how long his timeline is, to be frank with you. But they did love Joe La Sorsa, a non-roster invite that the Reds signed on a minor league deal. Joe La Sorsa looked pretty good in spring training. Hasn't looked that great so far this season, because he has 7 1/3 innings pitched. He has 3 strikeouts and 5 walks. Don't think his call-up is imminent there. We'll see. I'm sure we see his name at some point. I didn't think we'd see Randy Wynn be the first guy that got called up from Louisville, but hey, first Red with a 3-inning save. How about that one? And look at that. See, if Steve were here, I would have been trying to get all these puns in. Totally forgot about that. But the Reds won on a game. The Reds got the win on a game where Austin Wins hit well and Randy Wynn got the save. So you got wins. I didn't save enough mental brain power for puns. Jeez. And on that disappointment, it's time to end. Thanks so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. If you are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Become an everydayer. Make us your first listen every single day. Check out Tim Daniel on the postcast every single day, live on the Locked On Reds YouTube page, and then shortly after on your audio feeds. And also now, go check out Locked On MLB Game Night, because over on Locked On MLB, we got you covered for every single game, every single night, with a local angle on those games. That's Locked On MLB Game Night. Find it on the Locked On MLB feed. But hey, until our next podcast, you can always trust that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.